Ffridd Faldwyn is an Iron Age hill fort in northern Powys, in the former county of Montgomery shire. It is sited on a prominent hill west of Montgomery, close to Montgomery Castle, overlooking the River Severn. It is one of the largest hill forts in Wales. Description and history. When Thomas Pennant visited Montgomery in 1776, he noted on a hill, not far from the castle, is a stupendous British post. The approach is guarded by 4 great ditches, with 2 or 3 entrances towards the main work, with 2 or 3 fosse run across the hill, the end of which is sufficiently guarded by its steepness. The site was described and surveyed in June 1909, by the RCHMW. A detailed survey of the hill fort was published in 1932 by Dr. Willoughby Gardner, and this led to excavations being carried out by B.H. St. John O'Neill between 1937 and 1939. The excavations 1937-39. These excavations by St. John O'Neill, who was the inspector of ancient monuments in Wales, were carried out to a high standard. 5 sections were cut across the various ramparts and 3 area excavations were opened. This was following the most recent excavation practices developed by Mortimer Wheeler for his excavations at the hill fort at Maiden Castle in Dorset. O'Neill was able to define the earliest phase of the hill fort, a smaller enclosure measuring 170 meters by 80 meters, 1.2 hectares, with a gateway to the south, and defended with 2 rows of timber palisading. This enclosure stands on the highest area of the hill and contains a small mound which may have been a Bronze Age round barrow. Under the southern gate of this enclosure, evidence for earlier Neolithic occupation was found. This enclosure was then modified by a box-frame timber rampart, with an extension to the northwest and a barbican added to the south gateway. The inner area of the enclosure contained a number of rectangular 4-poster structures, which are now interpreted as the supports for wooden-framed granaries. The next phase was to greatly enlarge the hill fort, with timber-laced ramparts, which took in much of the slope of the hill to the northwest, towards the River Severn. The hill fort now measured 300 meters by 200 meters, and covered 4.4 hectares. The existing banks of this enclosure still in places stand to between 3 meters and 8 meters in height. A large annex area was added to the southwest gateway of this enclosure, which may have acted as a barbican. The defenses of the larger hill fort appear to have fallen into decay, and at some point, possibly at the time of the Roman conquest of Britain, were refurbished with a simple earthen bank. Interpretation. The lack of finds from the excavations, only 1 piece of Iron Age pottery was discovered, and the absence of radiocarbon dating for the ramparts and other structures, means that it is difficult to date the various phases of O'Neill's excavations. There is the possibility that the earlier smaller enclosure dates from the later Bronze Age and was contemporary with the earliest phase of the Breedon hill fort near Welshpool. The larger hill fort of the later phase belongs to Barry Cunliffe's developed form of hill fort and bears comparison with such Wessex hill forts as Maiden Castle and Danebury in Hampshire, as well as Old Oswestry in Shropshire. Cunliffe has suggested that these developed hill forts went out of use in the 2nd century BC. Also, using Danebury as a model, Cunliffe has shown how developed hill forts have a pattern of smaller hill forts and settlements surrounding them. In the case of Ffridd Faldwyn, it is possible to detect this in the neighbouring parishes of Llandyssil and Llanmerwig. These include smaller hill forts at Goronddi, Coed y Wig, Sfnlan and Frantfraith in Llandyssil and Giant Spank in Llanmerwig.